Stretching 12.9 kilometers across the Northumberland Strait, the Confederation Bridge is one of Canada's most recognizable engineering projects. Originally known simply as the Fixed Link Project, it opened May 31st, 1997, connecting Prince Edward Island with mainland New Brunswick. When it was completed, it was the longest bridge in the world crossing ice-covered water. The bridge cost approximately $1 billion Canadian and was built through a partnership involving the Government of Canada, the Government of Prince Edward Island, and a private consortium. But the bridge was not simply an engineering project. It was the latest answer to a transportation question that had existed for more than a century. When Prince Edward Island joined Confederation in 1873, Canada agreed to provide the island with a year-round transportation connection to the mainland. For generations, that obligation was fulfilled by ferry service across the Northumberland Strait. The ferries became a part of island life and provided an essential connection for passengers, vehicles, goods, and mail. They worked, but the service was never completely free from the limits imposed by distance, weather, winter ice, operating costs, and increasing traffic. By the 1980s, a permanent crossing was under serious consideration. The basic argument was straightforward. Fixed Link could provide a dependable connection without relying on a ferry schedule or day-to-day operating costs of a fleet of ships. The question was not simply whether to build a fixed link, but what kind of fixed link should be built. The two principal alternatives were a bridge across the strait or a tunnel beneath it. Each promised a permanent connection, but they involved very different construction methods, costs, risks, and long-term operating requirements. They also had to contend with the strait's ice, currents, weather, geography, and navigation demands. In 1988, the ferries were still running, and I was fortunate enough to be attending graduate school at the London School of Economics, studying for a master's degree in urban planning. Thesis was required to complete the program, but I had not yet chosen a subject. The thesis I eventually wrote recommended a tunnel, and I thought it would be interesting to revisit that decision with the benefits of hindsight. In 1989, the Channel Tunnel was under construction. A group of us made a field trip to visit the French construction site and meet with members of the consortium building the project in Lille. Seeing the Sangatte site up close, with a tunnel boring machine in the yard, and speaking with the representatives of the consortium, led me to prepare my thesis on the proposed fixed link between New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island. We had no internet, so I spent several weeks ordering government reports maps from Canada and waiting for them to arrive in the mail. When I left London, I left a 2-foot-high stack of government reports, consultant studies, government documents, and historical records. Using the materials I had assembled, I spent July 1989 writing the dissertation. The question was straightforward. Was there a strong case for a permanent crossing, and if so, should it be a bridge or a tunnel? Any permanent link across this section of the Northumberland Strait had to connect the two shorelines while dealing with sea ice, shipping, and environmental concerns. Governments were not simply looking for a way to replace the ferries. The fleet was aging, traffic was expected to grow, and operation costs and federal subsidies were projected to rise. A permanent link promised shorter travel times, improved access, and new economic opportunities. The ferry cost projections did not prove the system had failed. They explained why governments were examining alternatives. The tunnel was far more than an underwater passage. It required portals, ventilation facilities, access roads, and supporting infrastructure on both the New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island sides. The comparison, therefore, involved two complete transportation systems, not simply a bridge and a tunnel. Both options could provide a permanent crossing. The bridge was the simpler engineering solution. The tunnel was the more complex to build, but it was expected to have lower environmental impacts and fewer effects on navigation and sea ice. The environmental risk assessment also favored the tunnel by a considerable margin. I was not choosing the option I personally liked. I was weighing the evidence available in 1989. Bringing together my LSE studies, the Channel Tunnel field visit, meetings with the project executives, and the Canadian feasibility studies, I concluded that a fixed link could improve transportation and reliability while supporting long-term economic development and employment. On balance, the tunnel offered the strongest long-term benefits while reducing environmental risk compared with a bridge. Based on the evidence available in 1989, I recommended the tunnel option. That was the recommendation I submitted to the London School of Economics in the summer of 1989. History, however, would take a very different path. Construction began in 1993. These photographs, courtesy of the government of Prince Edward Island, show the bridge taking shape over the next 4 years. bridge opened on May 31st, 1997, so with more than 3 decades of hindsight, was recommending a tunnel a mistake? Nearly 4 decades later, one thing is clear. The economic case for a fixed link has largely been borne out. I still believe the tunnel offered some advantages from an environmental and practical perspective. However, obviously, the engineering involved in building a tunnel in this area was a cost the governments were not willing to bear. So the bridge was built, and even though I offered a tunnel recommendation in my dissertation, the bridge has earned my respect over the years. Feel free to comment and provide your own opinions if you wish to, and thanks for watching.